To analyze non-numeric data, we have to assign numeric values. Here I give you an example of states and regions and a numeric conversion. When we do numeric conversions, we have to be careful about how we use those numbers. Remember, the thing about nominal data is that even though we might use numbers in our analysis, the numbers don't have any mathematical relationship to one another. For instance, Georgia is in the South, assigned the number 4, and Maryland Mid-Atlantic has been assigned number 2. In no way would we say that the region of Georgia is twice the region of Maryland. That just doesn't make any sense. Why do we bother with dummy variables? Later in the term, we will learn that dummy variables are used to examine group differences. Hold that thought. How do we use dummy variables in this class? We will use dummy variables when we want to perform analysis on a categorical variable, that is, a nominal or ordinal variable in SPSS. Unfortunately, we have to do this manually. Here's a rule for you to remember about dummy variables. If the original variable has 2 categories, we create 1 dummy variable. When we have 3 categories, we create 2 dummy variables. For 4, we create 3, and so on. We always create 1 fewer dummy variables than we have categories in the original variable. The concept here is that all cases falling into a specific category assume the value of 1, and all cases not falling into that category assume a value of 0. Let's talk about what that means. Suppose you have a list of states and the type of healthcare exchange that each one set up in response to the Affordable Care Act. This is actual data. You see I have a list of states, and they are categorized as either federally facilitated or state-based. A dummy variable is assigned a value of either 0 or 1. 0 corresponds to no, 1 corresponds to yes. Whatever characteristic the dummy variable is trying to capture, you assign a value of 1 if it does have that characteristic, and a value of 0 if it does not. In this case, I am creating a dummy variable that I am going to call fed_dummy. I'm going to assign values to each observation, each state, based on the value of the variable type of marketplace. For any state, if type of marketplace is federally facilitated, I'm going to assign a value of 1 to my dummy variable. If, on the other hand, type of marketplace is state-based, then I will assign a value of 0 to my dummy variable. Let's test your understanding of this concept. I'm going to make things a bit more complicated now. Let's take a look at what happens when we have 3 categories. I added back in some states that I skipped in the earlier example to get us a 3rd category. In this list, Arkansas and Delaware both have a partnership type of marketplace. Because we have 3 categories now, I'm going to set up 2 dummy variables. I am going to assign a value to each observation for this variable based on the category of the original variable. I am going to use the same variable that I used in the previous setup. Fed_dummy denotes whether the observation has a federal exchange or not. Same deal. For each observation, I assign a value of 1 if it is a federally facilitated exchange and a value of 0 if it is not. We have already evaluated fed_dummy for most of our observations, but I snuck 2 more in this time, Arkansas and Delaware. Neither of them is federally facilitated. I assign a value of 0 to both. My second dummy variable is going to be state_dummy. I'm basing it on the values of the same original variable that I used to create fed_dummy, but you'll see that my coding scheme is different. Again, I will go state by state, this time asking the question, does this state have a state-based marketplace? For Alabama, it's federally facilitated. The answer is no. Alaska, federally facilitated? No. Arizona, federally facilitated? No. Arkansas, partnership? No. California, state-based? Yes. And here again, you can see how I've done the coding. Make sure that you can go through and get the same sets of answers. It comes down to a fairly simple coding scheme. For any state the type of marketplace is federally facilitated, I am going to assign a value of 1 to Fed dummy and a value of 0 to state dummy. For any state the type of marketplace is state-based, I am going to assign a value of 0 to Fed dummy and a value of 1 to state dummy. Where does that leave states in the third category, partnership? Apply the same logic. Is it federally facilitated? No. Assign a value of 0 to Fed dummy. Is it state-based? No. Assign a value of 0 to state dummy. That's it. That's all you have to do. States that fall into the excluded category, the category for which we did not create a dummy variable, are assigned a value of 0 for the dummy variables that we did create. A bit of terminology for you to remember. The excluded case is the base case. It is the point of comparison for the other categories. More on that later. For now, try one more assessment to make sure you understand these concepts before moving on.